Hey, real quick before the video gets started, I designed this shirt. If you're interested in picking up one in large, extra large, or 2XL, check for the link in the description below. On to the video. Welcome back to another Tech Junkie video. In today's video, this Galaxy S20 Plus played chicken with a car and lost, and we're going to completely restore the front and back. Now luckily for us, there was no damage to the internals, so all we had to do was a complete restoration and the phone was fully functional. We're going to start like we always do with the back glass getting heated up to 75 degrees Celsius on a heat mat for 5 minutes. With the phone properly heated, we insert an X-Acto knife flat blade with some 99% isopropyl alcohol. The alcohol helps cut away at the glue. It makes the process a lot simpler. If you just use heat, this process can get nasty, especially when the glass is as broken as this one was. The alcohol cuts this repair time down significantly when it comes to removing this back glass. It's important to note here that the 99% isopropyl alcohol is perfectly safe to use in this electronic device. It will not cause any kind of reaction with your phone. This is what we use to remove the glue from most cell phones, so you don't have to worry about it damaging the internals of your phone. Once you get the back glass off, you have to remove all of the Phillips screws. All of these screws are Phillips head screws, so you don't have to have more than one screwdriver. I'd estimate there's probably between 15 and 20 screws here. I didn't do an exact count, but there are a lot of those Phillips screws here. So once you get all of the Phillips screws removed, you can remove all of the plastics that hold your antenna bends and hold your front camera down, and your loudspeaker and that kind of stuff, your wireless charging coil. Loudspeaker. This plastic bracket here houses the loudspeaker and some additional antenna bands, and once we remove that, we can turn our attention to all the flex cable connectors. This is the 5G antenna here, and then this is to the volume buttons. You're going to disconnect every one of these flex cable attachments so that you can remove the board, lift the board up and out. So I use a nylon spudger to get under each connector and safely pop it out of its housing. And once you get those removed, you can just set them over to the side. You also want to make sure that you remove the SIM card tray. The board will not lift up and out of the phone if your SIM card is still in the phone. It can cause your phone SIM card tray to bend, so you want to make sure that you get that out. Now, one thing that I found with this S20 Plus is this front camera is completely glued down in place. I don't know why Samsung thought that it would be a good idea to glue your front camera to the screen, but they did. We ended up breaking this front camera, and I did not have a spare front camera on hand for this repair, so I had to order it, and we later did the front camera replacement off camera. But we did the rest of the repair at this particular moment. So we got some more screws down at the bottom by your charge port. Remove those screws, set those off to the side a little bit separate from the rest of the screws, and then you can take a spudger and stick it in the charge port, gently popping the charge port out of place. I use heat and alcohol to pop the vibrate mech out. You want to go ahead and put that in place on the new screen right away. You don't want to risk losing that. it is easy to lose, and I have misplaced those in the past, so that's why I go ahead and pop it in place on the new screen. Also, I go ahead and put the charge port in place on the new screen and screw it down so that part of the repair is completely done. The reassembly process tends to be a lot smoother and easier than the disassembly process. You have a few components to transfer to the new screen. You've got your board, your vibrate mech, your charge port, and all of your flex cables. But other than that, reassembly is fairly simple and straightforward. Now, like I said before, the front camera we did in off camera at a later date than this video was filmed, simply because we didn't have another front camera on hand. I was not expecting the front camera to be completely glued down inside of the screen. That's a new one for me, and I can't even begin to imagine why Samsung would think it would be a good idea to glue the front camera down. It makes no sense. That camera's not going anywhere. The board sits on top of it. It's not like it's going to fall out of the phone. So anyway, we're going to move on to the battery. We use heat and, again, alcohol to pop this battery out. If you don't use heat and alcohol, this battery is next to impossible to get out without some kind of damage to the battery. So we apply heat to the front of the screen so that the battery adhesive heats up, and that alcohol loosens that adhesive enough to pop that battery out. You do want to transfer your battery to the new screen. You don't want to have to replace the battery every time you replace the screen. So we're going to put our 5G antenna back in here on the side of the phone. It does get held down by 2 screws. And then luckily for us, the new screen had some pre-installed adhesive in place, so we didn't have to use new adhesive. Here we're going to slide the battery into its compartment. It's a good idea here to test fit your connector to the board with your battery to make sure that you have enough cable for the battery connector to slide in place on the board, but make sure you disconnect your battery again before you start reconnecting all of your flex cables from the main board to the sub board down at the bottom. It's really not possible to connect these in the wrong place. Each one of these flex cables is its own size, so you don't have to worry about putting the wrong connector in the wrong place. It's just fairly straightforward here. Now we're going to put our loudspeaker and plastic bracket back in place down on the bottom, and then once you do that, you're pretty much done. You want to make sure that you connect your wireless charging coil in before you snap it in place, and then you fold your plastic bracket back over the top of the phone. Make sure everything snaps in place and is nice and flush and straight, so that when you put all of your screws in, everything else is done. Now, we skipped over just putting all the screws back in. It just seemed like an unnecessary step to watch me just put screws in for a minute and a half. So once we finish with that, we just snap our cloud blue back glass on here. We did do a full color change on this S20 Plus and remove the plastic, and we're done. The phone battery was dead, so we charged it before we gave it to the customer, but this phone is completely restored and fully functional. Like I said, we did change that front camera off camera. The customer was completely happy with this phone, and it had no issues. After being hit by a car, we were able to bring this phone back to life. Make sure to hit that like button, and y'all take it easy.